Welcome everyone, thank you for tuning in. This is the account bringing you today's news update for day 293 of the war in Ukraine. Nothing really significant was reported in the news today. The only major development would be the situation around Bakhmut, which we will discuss shortly. So the news report today will focus mostly on political developments and some recap stories inside Ukraine, the situation in Melitopol and the occupied territories, and some minor international developments. But first, let's take a look at the main flashpoints along the front. Bakhmut. The situation is extremely critical while heavy battles are raging. Russian forces have reportedly advanced on the Lumumba and Maximenka streets. An unnamed Pentagon official also stated Russia has achieved some success in Bakhmut. However, Ukrainian defenders still hold the city. According to the spokesperson for the Eastern Group of Troops of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Bakhmut is now the hottest area of the front, but Ukrainian defenders are destroying Russian ammunition depots and weapons. Marinka. Russian forces have taken control of one of the main roads from Krasnohorivka. This was one of the supply lines for Ukrainian defenders. Heavy fighting continues in the center of the city. A video shared on social media is showing Russia shelling the area with its Tornado MLRS. Kreminna. Fighting continues around the settlements of Chervono-Popivka and Zydlivka. There is no further information available. However, Serhiy Haidai, the head of the Luhansk Oblast military administration, has. And in case anyone is wondering why the progress on the front has slowed down lately, here's a nice video showing the current conditions on the ground. Let's move on to the news. First up, the situation in Ukraine and the mentioned recap stories. Ukrainian and Russian forces recently engaged in artillery-on-artillery counter-battery around Hulepole and Polohi in southern Ukraine's Zaporizhia Oblast, a little over 100 kilometers northeast of Russian-occupied Melitopol. Although such battles are not uncommon, the December 9th artillery duel was marked by the Ukrainian army reportedly massing mechanized forces around Hulepole. If that's true, it could be a sign that Ukraine's fourth counteroffensive might be imminent, despite the onset of winter, Forbes reports. It is alleged a large number of Neptune missiles was sabotaged in the beginning of the war. After the first combat use, an inspection discovered a very suspicious pattern. All missiles had one part damaged, which caused the missiles not to detonate as they should have. Luckily, the issue was quickly resolved and led to the famous sinking of the Moska Battleship. It was further reported that the first ever use of the Neptune system was in February when it saved Mykolaiv from a Russian naval landing. Despite the fact that none of the 3 Neptunes launched in February hit their target, they completed their mission to protect Ukrainian territory as Russia realized the threat of the missiles was real and ordered the landing ships to return. Going on, it was revealed how exactly the Moska Battleship was discovered and sunk. Apparently, nature itself helped Ukraine. The battleship entered strike range of the Neptune missiles because Russia was sure that the armed forces of Ukraine relied on conventional radar systems and therefore should not be able to see the ship. According to the report, Ukraine did not operate any over-the-horizon radars at the time, and conventional radar systems usually only detect targets no further than 18 kilometers. However, on April 13 around 4 p.m., a radar unexpectedly showed a target located 120 kilometers off the coast. It seems dense cloud cover reflected the radar signal to the surface of the Black Sea, which bounced it back to the cloud cover and to the radar system. This information was all revealed in the latest article by Ukrainska Pravda. Sadly, the original article is in Ukrainian, but I recommend checking it out nonetheless, as it contains a lot of interesting details about the Neptune system and how it helped destroy Russia's pride. And now for a look inside the occupied territories. A large explosion was once again reported in Melitopol. According to the mayor Ivan Fedorov, the explosion could be heard around 2 p.m. in the very center of Melitopol. Shortly after, Russian authorities started blocking all roads. Local residents reported hearing gunfire and seeing a body covered in black film. No further information is currently available. The Institute for the Study of War stated in the latest assessment that Russian forces appear to lack sufficient infrastructure to support their troops in Crimea. It further reported about claims made by Russian military bloggers saying a hospital in Sevastopol is facing a blood donor shortage for wounded soldiers. Since the hospital did not receive any support or supplies even after notifying the Russian authorities, the bloggers further alleged corruption might be the reason behind this. The Institute further states that the shortages on the peninsula might also be directly linked to the damaged Kerch Bridge. And finally, the international developments. In a surprise move, Belarus has decided to check the combat readiness of its military. The troops should advance to the designated areas as soon as possible, implement the engineering equipment, organize security and defense, as well as establish bridge crossings over the Neman and Berezina rivers. This is reported by the press service of the Ministry of Defense of Belarus. Dmitry Peskov, the Russian president's press secretary, refused any possibilities of withdrawal and advised Kyiv to accept the realities that have developed over all this time. He most likely referred to the annexation of occupied territories by Russia in September. Earlier, President Zelensky appealed to the Kremlin to begin the withdrawal of its troops from Ukraine by the end of the year. Alexander Bogomas, governor of Bryansk Oblast, Russia, accused Ukraine of launching a rocket on Klitsy, which is roughly 60 kilometers from the border. According to him, Russian air defense intercepted the missile and fragments fell on the premises of the industrial zone. He explicitly stated that there was no damage caused. A motor rifle regiment is allegedly stationed in the city. However, later today, footage of the aftermath was shared on social media and shows a huge crater with several damaged military vehicles. Allies of Ukraine have pledged over $1 billion to help Ukraine through the winter. This was announced by the French foreign minister after the In Solidarity with the Ukrainian People conference in Paris. About half of the funds will cover restoring Ukraine's energy sector and the food sector, water supply, health, and transportation, while the rest has yet to be allocated. Allies of Ukraine have pledged over $1 billion to help Ukraine through the winter. This was announced by the French foreign minister after the In Solidarity with the Ukrainian People conference in Paris. About half of the funds will cover restoring Ukraine's energy sector and the food sector, water supply, health, and transportation, while the rest has yet to be allocated. And just as we were about to finish the report, CNN broke huge news. The Biden administration is finalizing plans to send Patriot missile defense systems to Ukraine. While the plan still needs to be approved by Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin before it is sent to President Joe Biden for his signature, 3 officials told CNN that approval is expected. It is currently unknown how many missile launchers will be sent. Moving on to the UK Ministry of Defence intelligence update. On December 12, 2022, the Kremlin confirmed that President Vladimir Putin will not hold his traditional end-of-year press conference. This will be the first time in 10 years that Putin has not held the annual event, while the usual public phone-in also did not take place this year. The press conference has become a significant fixture in Putin's calendar of public engagement and has frequently been used as an opportunity to demonstrate the supposed integrity of Putin. Although questions are almost certainly usually vetted in advance, the cancellation is likely due to the increasing concerns about the prevalence of anti-war feelings in Russia. Kremlin officials are almost certainly extremely sensitive about the possibility that any event attended by Putin could be hijacked by unsanctioned discussion about the special military operation. And last but not least, the evening report by the General Staff of Ukraine. For the purpose of replenishing the losses and replenishing the units of the 1st Army Corps of the occupying forces, Measures of forced mobilization were intensified in the territory of the Donetsk Oblast. Therefore, in the city of Horlivka, men are subject to conscription, in particular those with the armor mark on their military tickets. On December 11th, the enemy lost up to 60 servicemen killed and up to 100 wounded in the area of Kadivka settlement of Luhansk Oblast as a result of the destruction of the personnel deployment point of the Russian occupying troops. The defeat of the enemy by the defense forces of Ukraine in the previous days in the Zaporizhia Oblast was confirmed. Thus, in addition to the destruction of the command staff of the 58th Army in the city of Melitopol, 3 artillery systems, up to 10 units of military equipment of various types were destroyed in the areas of Enerhoda, Tokmak, Hulepole settlements, and about 150 enemy servicemen were wounded. And that's it for today's news update. If you're interested in certain topics and want to read up on them, I included the links in the description. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. You are listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.